Hello, New River Primary. So this is a review lesson for the kindergarten group that we worked with in March of 2022, just kind of reviewing some of those code.org concepts. So we want to clarify some expectations about how we would like you to implement some lessons. And we want to let you know about some standards-based extensions that you can include easily with some of these activities and lessons. And we hope to just give you some time to work on the code.org website. So we reviewed this vocabulary of debugging, algorithm, pair programming, and looping. And then we talked about the 6 lessons, 3 in the fall and 3 in the spring, that we'd like to see you implementing in your classrooms. And we focused on lesson 8, loops with Scrat, in our time together. But one of the ways that you can provide an extra challenge is right there on the code website. So we're going to go to the code website. And once you sign in, once you log in, you'll see your name in this upper right-hand corner. And that will allow you to see the course catalog over here on the left. And when you click on the course catalog, it's going to take you here. From here, you want to expand the CS fundamentals. And that's where you'll be able to view the course for kindergarten, which is course A. So we'll click on course A. And that will take us to all 13 of the lessons for kindergarten, starting with the first one, safety in my online neighborhood. From this page, you can click on this blue button to view the lesson plan. And it gives you all of the objectives, standards, vocabulary, everything that might be needed for the implementation of this lesson. At the very bottom, you'll also see opportunities for extended learning. So these are extensions that you can add to challenge students or to spend more time with the content. On this, you'll notice that some of them have a lot of little bubbles here. These are links to the puzzles within each lesson. So learning to drag and drop has 12 puzzles. And this is what your students will see when they bring it up. Now, one thing that we talked about was the ability to click on this little book here and have it read the directions to your students.
Click the block.
So going back to the lesson plans, we worked on lessons 4 a little bit and then lesson 8. So if you remember, we talked about sequencing with Scrat, and we talked about putting multiple directions here and then helping Scrat get to the acorn. Now this is completed because we did it together. But if you'd like to see what it'll look like for your students, you can click start over, and this is what they'll be starting with. Here are their directions, and sometimes there's more than you can see in this box. So you have to scroll down in this box up here to see all of the directions. But once again, you can have it read it to you.
Snap both movies blocks to the bottom of the one run.
In that format, or where it shows them the text and reads it to them. So we worked through several of these together. And then we moved on to lesson 8, loops with Scrat. So looking at this lesson plan, here we have an example of those extension opportunities at the bottom. So if you scroll all the way down from here, you'll see that they have some standard aligned extensions here. And they are related to English language arts, math, science, computer sciences, and some principles for your classroom, a lot of great materials. So we also practiced pair programming. So that was when you paired up with someone and one person was the navigator and one person was the driver, or one person was the navigator and one person was the programmer. So one person is touching the computer and one person is not. And we even made it a little bit more challenging for your students by having them write down the numbers and add them up, if you recall. So with your partner, we even did blind programming. And that was where one person held up a piece of paper, the navigator, and they could see Scrat and they could count the steps he needed to take, but the programmer could not, the driver could not. And that forced both participants, both students, to count themselves independently, and just adds another layer of accountability there. Now here, this is a more advanced lesson within this skill, and they're asking students to fix the code. So they have to look at how many Scrat needs to go and see what happened to make it incorrect. So they have to be able to count and then make the numbers match. We also talked about having them add up the numbers to see how many steps Scrat took to get to his acorn. So you can do that in an advanced lesson like this, where they're adding the numbers in the repeat blocks here. You can have them write them down on a piece of paper or a whiteboard and then work together to add them up. Or you can go back to a more simple lesson for that same activity, where you're just having them count with maybe only one repeat block and having them add those up. And there they will be changing the number in the repeat block to match what Scrat needs. But you can definitely incorporate some counting here quite easily. So one of the opportunities for extensions is the mini projects. And the final project is a larger project, but lesson 12 is a mini project. And those can also help students have a little bit more of an opportunity to expand their learning. Another opportunity is to have the students, when they're in these lessons, show the code. So over here, there's a button that says show code, and you can have them do that and then count how many lines of code they have. That's another great opportunity for counting. And it's gonna look a little bit easier if they're in a lesson where they're not using the repeat blocks, but they can definitely do it with the repeat blocks. So for example, you could say, how many lines of code did you use for this one? And they would have to count one line of code here, one here. You can also ask students why something worked or why it didn't work. So we did puzzles 1 and 5 together. You actually did several more with your partner. And we went over the rules for pair programming. And there's a great video on the code.org website that you can show your students. And let me just find that link for you. That is in, I believe, the first grade unit. But kindergartners can definitely do some pair programming, especially by the end of the year. So here's the video for pair programming. I found it in the course B for first grade, and it's in lesson 4. It's also in course C for second grade, but this is the video. And it's a really great little video that explains to students what they're doing and why they're doing it. All in about 2.5 minutes.
Hey, we're going to learn about pair programming. In pair programming, you work as a team. Why should two people use one computer? Why should two people use one computer? Because two heads are better than one. We work together in an interesting kind of way. Because we're interesting people.
Okay, so we took turns doing pair programming, and there were several steps, and I purposefully used those ordinal numbers. And I gave you a poster of the ordinal numbers just to get kindergartners used to hearing first, second, third, fourth, and correlating their meaning with the concept. And one important part of pair programming is to make sure that each person gets to play each role, the navigator and the programmer. So you did have to do some debugging and you did have to work together. And I know you all thought of different extension opportunities as we worked through this. And hopefully this helped you understand a little bit better how to navigate the code.org website and find what you need within the course catalog. And the courses. Thanks, Panthers.